Hi, my name is Bryn Maycott. I'm joining you today for Pagan Pride Day Springfield. I'm glad you are all safe. I'm glad you're all staying safe. So my presentation is on practical astrology. I'm going to be reading my notes, so if I look away from the screen, that's what I'm doing. I'm reading my notes. So astrology is used for many things, and personal horoscopes are blamed for many things. So imagine that every time you go to a certain city, you get lost. So for me, that city would be Dallas. It just seems like every time I'm going to or through Dallas, there's construction and detours. So not in any way slamming Dallas, I'm just saying. Anyway, now this city is somewhere that is not entirely new to you. So you went there frequently at a certain point in your life. But now you can't seem to remember how to get around, and you always seem to end up in the wrong place and in the same wrong place. So you don't want to have to call for help every time you get lost here. So you finally break down and admit you need to follow a map. Our lives are kind of like that. We don't always recognize the indicators, the warning signs when we're going through situations in our daily lives. But at a certain point, we look back and realize that we always seem to make the same decisions that just don't seem to be working well for us. It might be relationships, it might be our jobs, it might be money, and we think, if only there was a map that could help me navigate successfully to where I want to be. So our personal birth charts, our personal horoscopes, whatever, it's a personal birth chart. I do ones that look like this. Make sure I've got this in the screen if you want to do a screenshot. These can provide answers, but we need more information than just our sun sign. Using just our sun sign would be like having a map or a GPS that only shows us the cities, but no highways, no way to get there. So here's the blank chart I start with. The information I need to get started is, what is the birthday? What is the time of birth? And where were you born, city, state, or country? Once I have that information, I figure out the ascendant. So your ascendant, or you may have heard it referred to as the rising sign, is always the first section of the pie chart. So let me pull that up. So on our chart, that would be this part of the pie, this piece of the pie right there. And it is always in this location. So no matter who you are, when I figure out your ascendant, the ascendant always goes in this first piece of the pie. Your birth chart starts right there. The zodiac sign that is your ascendant determines where all the other zodiac signs will go. So I'm going to fill in this chart based on my own personal birth date so that you can see how this is done and how birth charts work. So I'm going to put Aries. Aries is my ascendant or rising sign, so I'm going to put the symbol for Aries in the ascendant section. So let me put that in. So there is the symbol for Aries. Now my birth chart just happens to follow the zodiac from the first sign. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and mine just happens to be there. Your ascendant could be Gemini. So Gemini would go here, Cancer comes next, then Leo, then Virgo. So for me, I'm going to start filling in. So Taurus will come next, then Gemini, then Cancer, and so forth. So I'm going to do that right now real quick. Got Taurus, and then Gemini, and then Cancer, and then Leo, then Virgo, and then Libra, and then Scorpio, and then Sagittarius, and then Capricorn, and then Aquarius, and then Pisces. Okay, so this is what my birth chart would look like with all of the signs filled in. So any of the signs can be your ascendant, as I said, based on the date, time, and location of your birth. Okay, so the next step in filling out a chart is now putting in the planets. So you have to know where your planets are, where your planets were located at your time of birth. What sign they go with. Sun is the next one that we start with. So I know my sun is a Libra, so I'm going to put in the sun at Libra. So then the next sign that we would look at would be our moon. So I know my moon is in Leo, so I'm going to put my moon there. And then the next one we would do, now we go to Mercury. So Mercury, and then Mercury, Venus. My Venus is in Virgo. And then Mars. My Mercury, my Sun, Mercury, and Mars are all in Libra. And then Jupiter. My Jupiter is in Scorpio. Saturn, my Saturn is in Capricorn. Then Uranus. Then Neptune. Uranus is in Leo. Neptune is in Scorpio. And Pluto. Okay. So I put all my little planets all around wherever sign they go with. Okay. Now we have all the signs and planets placed. What is next? Well, there's a few things that you need to remember. One, there are no bad signs. So some signs and planets work easily together, and others are more challenging, but none of that is bad. So there are no bad signs. Number two, so the way I try to explain this is planets are forces that act in your life, in your chart, with each other. They're the forces that act. Signs, like Libra, Aries, are how the forces act. What is their personality? A moon in Virgo will be a whole different force than a moon in Aries. And then houses. So as you'll notice on this chart, I have numbers. So like the ascendant is always in the first house. Then there's a 2, 3, 4, 5. Those numbers indicate houses, and there are 12 houses. So I would say that my ascendant is in my first house. My sun sign, Libra, which has the sun, Venus, or Sun, Mercury, and Mars, are in my 7th house. Saturn in Capricorn is my 10th house. So the houses are where the forces act. So each of these houses actually have a name, and we will get to that. On our example chart, the numbers indicate houses. As I said, the ascendant, everyone's ascendant, is always in the first house. One of the reasons we need to know more than just our sun sign is that you will find very few people who have the exact same birth chart. So very few people are born at the exact same time of the same day in the exact same place, for the most part. You will find a lot of people who share Libra as their sun sign, but they probably have different rising signs, different moon signs, and so on. And their suns would be then in different houses. So the next one is, I think of sun signs as the roles we play in our grand drama that we call our life. We are the leading role in each of our dramas, but what exactly is that role? The sun also illuminates and magnifies whatever it touches. The moon sign is our inner self. It is our emotions, instincts, unconscious. You may be familiar with shadows. Our moon selves may never see the light of day unless we are willing to embrace this side of our personalities. Our ascendant reflects our outer demeanor, and to a great extent, it determines how the world sees us. It is our image. Often it is what the world first sees and the impression we first make on people. The ascendant can sometimes be more immediately revealing than our sun sign. If you find that how your sun sign is described seems shallow, so when you go to your horoscope or if you read astrology books, sometimes some of the sun signs it just doesn't seem to fit. So by the way, as a Libra, I see this all the time. We're described as charming, indecisive, extravagant. I use tarot equivalents as the deeper explanation for each sun sign. So each sun sign has a tarot equivalent. So we're going to look at those now. So I just want to give a few words. Note, I use gender non-specific words. Traditional words are in parentheses. So that's my first disclaimer. Put that over there. So, Aries, the tarot equivalent is the ruler, or you may have heard it called the emperor if you have a traditional tarot deck. Taurus is the Hierophant. Gemini, the Lovers. Cancer is the Chariot. Leo is Strength. Virgo is the Hermit. Libra is Justice. Scorpio is Death. Sagittarius is Temperance. Capricorn, the Devil. Aquarius, the Star. Pisces, the Moon. So when you think of those, for instance, I used Libra before and said in a lot of descriptions you'll see it as charming and indecisive and extravagant. So now let's balance that with justice. So what do you think of when you hear justice? And does that seem to be a deeper, a deeper meaning? So there are, it's more nuanced than just indecisive. Actually, justice kind of indicates that you can make decisions. So let's talk about houses now. So similarly with the tarot signs, I also have house descriptions. So as you will see, let's look at our example chart first of all. and fill in some more information. So, as you can see with Aries is in my first house. That means Aries is in my house of self. So the first house is always the house of self. Now just one note here. So you will notice on my example chart here, I do not have any planets in some of these houses, in some of these sections of the pie. Almost everybody has that on their chart. I have never done a chart where I have every pie, section of the pie, piece of the pie filled in. That does not mean you don't have those influences. Cancer was still in the 4th house, even if there are no planets there. Similarly, in the 3rd house with Gemini. Even though there's no planets, Gemini was still in my 3rd house. It just means there will be less of an influence in those houses. So now let's go back to the houses. The first house is your house of self. The second house is the house of possessions. The third house is the house of communication. Fourth house is the house of home. Fifth house is the house of creativity. Sixth house is the house of service. Seventh house is the house of partnership. Eighth house is the house of regeneration. Ninth house is the house of mental exploration. 10th house is the house of career. 11th house is the house of hopes. 12th house is the house of self-undoing. So one last thing, and to me it is the most important thing when you are doing a chart. So let's go back to our sample chart. So to me, the most important thing when you are looking at these, what makes a more full description of a birth chart is the aspects. So aspects are angles formed between planets. Astrologers actually drill down. So with our example chart, we can actually figure out our broad aspects. So the aspects usually go with degrees of a circle. So for instance, conjunction is 0 degrees, and that means the planets that occupy the same house. So for instance, in my 7th house, my house of partnerships, with Libra, I have 3 planets. Those would be a conjunction. Opposition is 180 degrees apart. So my Libra and my Aries, my ascendant, are 180 degrees apart. That would be an opposition. A square is 90 degrees. So you can figure that out, or you can count. So for me, 30 degrees makes up, 30 degrees is each piece of the pie. And then times 12, that would be 360 degrees for a circle. So you can count. So for instance, 180 degrees, so I can go 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180. So you can just count. Or I know that it is 6 houses away. So a square would be 3, 90 degrees, 3 pieces of the pie. So for instance, my Scorpio with Neptune and Jupiter is 1, 2, 3, a square away from my Leo, which has my moon and my Uranus. A trine is 120 degrees. So that would be 4 pieces of the pie. So that would be, let's see, 1, 2, 3. So my Saturn in Capricorn in the 10th house, 1, 2, 3, 4, would be a trine away from my Virgo with Venus and Pluto. We have some other less, I hate to say less important, but more minor aspects. There's a sextile, which is 60 degrees, so that would be 2. So for instance, Libra to Leo. Semi-sextile is 30 degrees, so that would just be one apart. So my Libra and my Scorpio, or my Libra and my Virgo, or my Virgo and my Leo. And then quincunx, which is 150 degrees, so that would be 5. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. So my Saturn in Capricorn is 5 away from my Leo, with my moon and my Uranus. But actually what astrologers do, and you will find this if you ever use any of the free apps that will give you that information. So actually they consider an aspect only true with all of those angles if the planets are within 2 degrees of that angle. So for instance, you could have 3 planets in a certain house, but that's 30 degrees to work with. And if there was, say, 25 degrees between 2 of the planets, astrologers generally don't consider that a conjunction, even though they occupy the same house. So it has to be within 2 degrees of perfect. So it would go from 358 to 2 degrees. They would consider that a conjunction, or they would consider it anything else. So for a trine with 120 degrees, there would be that, but only 2 degrees on either side. So conjunctions are considered a very powerful aspect in your chart. That's neither good nor bad. It is powerful. So I could expect to have a very powerful aspect in my chart between Sun and Mercury and Mars. An opposition is considered challenging. Also consider the house that they are in. So that means I have a very challenging aspect between my house of self, which is my ascendant with Aries, and my house of partnership, which is Libra, and my Sun, Mercury, and Mars. Square is also challenging. So for instance, I had my Scorpio, which has Jupiter and Neptune, is a square away from my moon and Uranus in Leo. That is also considered challenging. Harmonious is the trine. So that was the one that had, for instance, 1, 2. So my Saturn in Capricorn is only 4 away, 120 degrees from my Virgo, with my Venus and my Pluto. So that is a harmonious aspect. So one of the things that makes the aspects either challenging or harmonious or powerful. So for instance, let's take the trine, the harmonious aspect. My Saturn in Capricorn is a trine away, has a trine aspect with Virgo. They are both earth signs. So that is one reason why they are so harmonious. And any trine in your chart, they will occupy the same element. So they will either be fire, earth, air, or water. So that is why generally all fires work well together, all earths work well together, all air works well together, and all water works well together. The challenging ones, so for instance, opposition. So I have Aries, which is a fire sign, is in opposition to Libra, which is an air sign, but they both are cardinal signs. So 2 leaders or 2 doers, they may want to do in different ways. So that is one reason why those are challenging. A square, similarly a square. So you have, for instance, you have, which one? Let's see, Leo. Yeah, Leo and Scorpio. So that's a fire sign. That's a water sign. They really share nothing in common. Actually, between the two of them, they really share, well, actually, the one thing that they do share is the fixed. The fixed quality. So set in their ways, and neither one wanting to budge or give in. So that is aspects. And to me, if you want a fuller explanation of your chart and why you may seem to have certain challenges that keep reappearing in your life, maybe under different guises, but they still keep reappearing. So it could be relationships, it could be possessions, it could be communication style. Aspects may give you a deeper look into why you keep having the same problems or facing the same issues, and that way you can come up with tools to minimize those conflicts in your personality, in your chart. So to do your own chart, there are free websites that you can use to find out where each of your planets are located. Some of the ones that I really like, I really like the one that is at, if you just type this in, horoscopes, HOROSCOPES ASTRO dash seek SEEK.com. So horoscopes.astro-seek.com. You'll need to know your birth date, the time of birth, and the location. You put that all in, and then poof, it's going to give you a chart. Now, it is not going to look anything like this, really. There's going to be all kinds of lines. It's not going to be perfectly set like mine is. But if you don't want to, if that confuses you, because you kind of need to know a lot about charts and how they're made in order to understand that, but just scroll down and then it will tell you what house each one of your planets and signs is in. So you can get more information that way. And you could fill in one of these charts that looks like this based on that. Just look at the reading part of it. And there's also a tab for aspects. So then it'll tell you which of your planets, which of your signs are in, have an aspect. So your oppositions, your conjunctions, your squares, your trines, and so forth. So one last thing, people have asked me what I think about other systems of astrology. So for instance, Indian astrology, Mayan astrology, Chinese astrology. The system of astrology that we just did, that I use, is called Western astrology. So my feeling is that, for instance, let's take Chinese astrology. The Chinese system of astrology, which by the way, pretty much predates the Western astrology, but it reflects its culture at its core. So I'm not sure how applicable it is to our Western lives. So I've read some books on Chinese astrology, and you will just see in the descriptions, of course, they use completely different, they don't use like Libra or whatever, so they have animals, and then they have different types of those. So they have like metal rabbit or wood rabbit and things like that. So theirs is very different, and the value that they put on those really reflects their culture, which is understandable. I mean, it was created for them. So I think there is a lot of value to learn about and study other systems of astrology, but I know, at least for me, it is not as applicable and doesn't resonate quite as much. So this video, we have now concluded my presentation. I don't know if some of you will have questions, if you want information in any of the things that I held up in front of the screen. If you want that website listed again, we can make all of that available to you. You can ask your questions or whatever on the Pagan Pride Day Springfield Mo Facebook page. So I really thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy all of the different presentations that we have for Pagan Pride Day this year. And we will talk to you later. Thank you.